there's a bright side somewhere. There's always a bright side somewhere. The world tries to make us feel like it's dark and gloomy all the time. But with Jesus, there is a bright side somewhere. Even in the midnight hour when it's dark and we don't understand and we're tired, there is a bright side somewhere. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Thank you, choir. Thank you, choir. Hallelujah. 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 I just have to give God some praise right now. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Because I've been through some dark times. And I'm not talking about 20 years ago. I'm talking about recent dark times. But there was a bright side somewhere. Good morning, family.
Good morning.
I bring you greetings in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. I bring you greetings from Zion Church in Landover, Maryland, where my pastor is Pastor Keith Battle.
Amen, amen.
Whom I love dearly. Zion changed my life.
Amen.
And I just want to, as a member of the Stanley family, just welcome all of you, even though we have been welcomed in I have never been welcomed in this long before. Yes, y'all. But I want to welcome you to Stanley Day worship here in the house of the Lord. We're so grateful for your presence today. We're grateful that you are already family, but that you're coming together and joining with our family, and that we are celebrating the Lord together. Amen. And to my family, I just want to say I love you all. We love you so much. There have been a lot of times when I'm normally quiet and kind of withdrawn, but this family welcomed me in. They treat me as their own, and I am so grateful. So grateful for you all. So grateful. So grateful to be picked on. So grateful to be told about myself.
We got the best side today.
But as an only child, I just have an appreciation for family that is probably unlike anyone else, because I didn't have the brothers and sisters and only had a few cousins. But now I have a huge family. And for that, I am grateful. And finally, I want to thank Pastor Ashley for this invitation, for allowing me to stand behind this holy desk, for trusting me to speak on behalf of the Lord to the family that has been charged in your care. So I just say thank you so much for that. So I would like to borrow from my pastor, if I could, for just a moment. Before we are treated to his sermon, he has us do what is called tribal moments. And he does that so that we don't just come into the house, worship the Lord, and leave. So that we actually talk to the people that are near us. So I just want us to take just a couple minutes and talk to the person on either side of you, and I want you to tell them one thing that you need Jesus to do for you. Just one thing that you need Jesus to do for you. And I'll give you about a minute or so to do that.
Keep the children safe.
Okay, how's everybody doing? Has everyone had a chance? Okay. So, You've already heard the scriptures for today. We've heard Luke's account of Jesus' triumphal entry, but I would like to take a moment to share with you Mark's account of that same triumphal entry, and I will be reading from the New King James Version. Now, when they drew near Jerusalem to Bethphage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives, he sent 2 of his disciples, and he said to them, "Go into the village opposite you, and as soon as you have entered it, you will find a colt tied on which no one has sat. Loose it and bring it. And if anyone says to you, 'Why are you doing this?' say, 'The Lord has need of it.' And immediately he will send it here." So they went their way and found the colt tied by the door outside on the street, and they loosed it. But some of those who stood there said to them, "What are you doing, loosing that colt?" And they spoke to them just as Jesus had commanded. So they let them go. Then they brought the colt to Jesus and threw their clothes on it, and he sat on it. And many spread their clothes on the road, and others cut down leafy branches from the trees and spread them on the road. Then those who went before and those who followed cried out, saying, "Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Blessed is the kingdom of our father David that comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest." And thus is the reading of God's word. Often when we think about Jesus' triumphal entry, that's what we picture. What we just read. A time of celebration, a time when people were screaming and shouting and praising God and throwing their clothes out before him and waving palm branches. And in Luke's account, it was so wild that the Pharisees looked at Jesus and were like, "Come on, Jesus, get your folk. They're out here being loud. They're out here embarrassing you. Get your folk."
Yes.
But Jesus told them, "Look, if I quiet them, even the rocks will cry out." Can you imagine? Just picture that picture of praise that is so wild that it makes churchy church folks uncomfortable. That kind of praise that is just so freeing. Because Jesus is riding in. And see, it's when we look at that picture, we see the children of Israel just happy. But if we think about what they were going through at the time, we can see that even though that was a good day, they had some bad days. Even though that was a good day, the fact of the matter is they were still under oppression by the Roman Empire. So at that very moment, they were happy. But can you imagine the days where they had to just acknowledge, I can't do what I want to do when I want to do it because somebody has their thumb on me. I can't worship how I want to worship because they got their thumb on me. And can you imagine how they had to encourage themselves with accounts of worship that they had heard that went on in the temple, in their temple. Stories they had heard about their great King David bringing the Ark of the Covenant back home and praising so hard that he came out of his clothes. What kind of praise is that? Where you come, they had to encourage themselves by remembering those things. And just like us, they had to encourage themselves with the Word of God. And we've heard some of these today, but I can just imagine them singing the words of Psalm 118. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endures forever. Let Israel now say his mercy endures forever. It's looking bad right now, but his mercy endures forever. I will praise you, for you have answered me and have become my salvation. The stone which the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. Save now, I pray, O God. O Lord, I pray. Send now prosperity, because these Roman folks are trying to break me, Jesus.
Come on here. Come on here.
Woo, oh Lord, send now prosperity. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Oh, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. And his mercy, his mercy endures forever. I can hear them reminding themselves and reciting the words of the prophet Zechariah. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey. I can hear them singing the words of Psalm 24. Lift up your head, O you gates, and be ye lifted up, you everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. Lift up your head, all ye gates. Lift you up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to encourage yourself. And even though we know that, I believe that we are not the founders of that thought. I believe the children of Israel knew that full well.
Amen.
Because as they were in the midst of being under the Roman thumb, they encouraged themselves and they reminded themselves. And when Jesus came riding in on a donkey, those words that they had been using to encourage themselves, then we can understand why that praise was so loud, why that praise was so exuberant, because they had been through so much. So much. And now here comes Jesus riding on this donkey. I imagine they felt like Etta James.
Come on here.
At last, my king has come. I believe they could have felt like Martin Luther King. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. They shouted Hosanna, which means help, save me, I pray. They shouted that because they had been going through so much, but now, here he is. Hosanna, help me, I pray. Help me, blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord. And the word lets us know that they honored him by throwing their clothes out on the road before him, showing as a sign that we surrender to you. We give it all to you. We honor you. And we bow before you, our King. They waved the palms as a sign of victory that they knew their king was going to bring them. It's such a pretty picture. It's such a wonderful picture. It's an awesome picture. However, we know something that they didn't know. That pretty picture would soon turn very ugly. That pretty picture of people jubilantly shouting, Hosanna, blessed be the one that comes in the name of the Lord, would soon, very soon, turn into some of the same people venomously shouting, crucify him. So what happened? How did that jubilant praise turn into despair and anger? How did that jubilant praise, where they were accepting Jesus as their king and submitting to him, how did that change to killing, handing over their king to their very enemies? So I found, as I read and study the scriptures, that I tend to judge the people in the Bible. I tend to judge them. I mean, not just this crowd, but we always say David was a man after God's own heart. So if that's true, how that whole Bathsheba thing happened? I mean, murder and adultery, that's not in my God's heart. So how was he a man after God's own heart? And with Peter, how are you going to be one of Jesus' boys, like his inner boys, his inner circle? And you're going to sit there and tell the man, I'm going to be with you until death. I will die for you, Jesus. And within 24 hours, I never knew him.
Yeah.
Not just I wasn't with him, I never knew him.
Come on here.
How does that happen? And I have to admit, I've even kind of chuckled when I read about the woman at the well. Because she's trying to slip and slide and miss everybody. Going to the well in the middle of the day so she don't have to, be with the other women since she done been with their husband. And lo and behold, here she comes up on Jesus. And then he says, I know everything you've done and I know what you're doing now. And I chuckled at that. Like, you thought you were going to slip and slide. Jesus found you. But what wasn't as laughable to me is as I was reading this, and I'm like, Jesus, these seemingly fickle people. They're praising you one minute, and in the next minute, they're crucifying you. Lord, how could they take something so beautiful and make it so ugly? And I kind of stopped laughing and judging when the Lord flipped it back on me. He said, I don't know, you tell me.
That's right.
How could you be giving me such a beautiful praise one minute, but then I don't do what you want me to do, and now you have a problem?
My God. Help us, Lord.
Right? So, my initial response to God was, I am nothing like those people. But then I thought about who I was talking to. I'm like, okay, let me back up a little bit and just shut my mouth. Because you know how your mama used to do, oh, you still talking? Nope, Jesus, I'm quiet. But he still kept talking, and he helped me to realize that I do have some things in common with him. I'm sure none of you have anything in common with him. But I'd like to take us on a little journey today to kind of try to put ourselves in their shoes and try to understand how they went from the beautiful picture to the ugly picture so that we can make sure that we stay in the beauty. Okay, so at this point, Israel was in their third oppressive period. Not one, not two. This is the third one. So they have some repeat things happening. They have a little cycle going. So the first one was the Assyrian exile. That one lasted between 10 and 20 years. Several of the tribes were taken from Jerusalem, which was their home. The ones that were left behind had to pay exorbitant taxes. They weren't free. They were at home, but they weren't free. And to add insult to injury, when the Assyrians took over, even though they left some of them there, they moved foreigners in. So that's like someone telling you that you have to move to California and then telling somebody they can move in your house and take everything you have. So now that's oppression. That's not only losing what you have, but having to watch somebody else take what you worked so hard for. And that went on for 10 to 20 years. And then the Lord released them. They went back. They rebuilt. They recentered themselves. They had a new perspective. They were all about the Lord. And then the Babylonian exile. This one lasted for 70 years. Again, taken from Jerusalem. This time, not only did they have to leave their houses, but Jerusalem was under siege for more than a year. So that means, even though you left the house, when you came back, it probably wasn't there.
That's right.
Burned, looted, what you had would not be there. Many were killed, and worst of all, the temple was destroyed. And that was the center of their lives. That was where they worshiped. That's where everything rotated around the temple. And it was gone. That lasted for 70 years. They came back. They rebuilt the walls. They rebuilt the temple. Life was getting back to normal. And then here come the Romans. Again, this caused Israel to have to scatter. And not only did they scatter, but again, the Romans came in. And they didn't just take over the physical things. Even though Israel people were still in leadership, the Romans were telling them what to do. So that gives you the appearance that you're still ruling yourself, but you're really not, because there's an outside force still determining what happens to you. So they've been through an Assyrian exile, a Babylonian exile, and now the Romans. And it's like the same thing over and over and over again. Anybody know anything about a vicious cycle?
Come on.
Over. The same trouble. Over and over again. Different players, but the same trouble. Over and over again. So at this point, as we read about this crowd, this was about 92 years in to the Roman rule. 92 years of being uncomfortable. 92 years of their money being funny because they had to give it to Caesar. 92 years of the Romans trying to give them the illusion that they're running themselves, but really running them into the ground. 92 years of having somebody that is against you over you. 92 years. If some of us go through things for 92 days, it's a major problem.
Say so.
92 years of all of this. 92 years of having to encourage themselves. 92 years. And then here comes Jesus. Riding on a donkey. Restoring things. Like it was when David, not just the good old days, the great old days, when David brought the ark in and the very presence of God was in the midst of us. Back in the good old days when we were rich, when we had plenty, when we were in control. Here comes Jesus. Riding in on this donkey, bringing all of that freedom. But unfortunately, their circumstances skewed their vision. They wore their frustration and their weariness like rose-colored glasses that only let them see what they wanted to see. They wanted relief. So that's what they saw. Relief. But they were blinded from what was truly going on. They were focused on the fact that their King of Glory was now coming in. That the Lord God, mighty in battle, was going to come and get rid of the Romans for them. Just how the Romans were so mean and forceful, they just knew Jesus was going to come in and lay them all out. With the same oppression that the Romans had put on them, they wanted Jesus to do that too. So that's why they were praising. Because that's what their expectation of what Jesus was going to do was. They were praising because now everybody that had something to say was going to see the day. They were praising because they had felt so confined for so long that they just wanted to break free. And they expected Jesus to do that for them by any means necessary. And that's why they praised him. But what they failed to see is that Jesus was no regular king. Kings of the day, when they were coming into their new kingdom, they rode on noble steeds, dressed in ornate robes or in their armor. And they rode down just sucking in all of the praise and expecting all the praise of their people. And they looked at their people as subjects and dared them to go against them. That's what a normal king did. But they forgot the words of the prophet Zechariah. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey. Lowly means humble. And the donkey was a symbol of peace.
Yeah, yeah.
So what they missed is they wanted the salvation. They wanted to be free. But they missed that the salvation that Jesus was bringing them was really peace.
Yeah, yeah. My God. My
That
God.
is, he was riding into their situation. He would deliver them. He would free them. They wanted it immediately, but he came to give them eternal freedom.
Yeah, yeah.
And it wasn't just about, I'm going to give you freedom right now from these people. It's not that you're going to be free right now. I'm going to give you freedom that's going to last forever, no matter who tries to be around you. No matter who tries to come against you. It's eternal. And this salvation that I bring will keep you in the situation, even if it doesn't change. They missed all of that. And as horrible as it may sound, I have to admit that after I had that revelation, I realized I'm really no different than those people. It hurt my feelings. And I felt it coming, but it still hurt my feelings. But I'm no different than those people. I mean, I wanted to believe that I wouldn't give the Lord a superficial praise. One that was dependent upon him doing for me what I want him to do. But the fact of the matter is, I've done it. I've done it. And I've had my moments when I was sick and tired of being sick and tired.
All right.
And just wanted to be like, Jesus, do you see this? Well, come on. What are you waiting for? I know you see this. I've had my moments when I superficially praised him because I thought he was going to come in and wage war on the people that had gotten on my nerves. And then been disappointed when it didn't work out that way. And even though I feel now that I have a greater understanding of those people in the crowd, even though I've been able to acknowledge that sometimes I've been just like them, I have decided today that I will not be one of them.
Yeah.
I may have thought some things like them. I may have done some things like them. But I am not one of them. Anybody want to join me in that one?
Come on,
We are not one of them. That is not our crowd, and that is not where we belong. So what is it that we can learn from this crowd that cried out Hosanna? If there's one thing that we can learn is that, first of all, we need a strategy. And strategy is defined as a plan of action designed to achieve a major or overall aim. It's also the art of planning and directing over operations and movements in a battle. So to stand out from this crowd, we need a plan of action for how we are going to act when storms come in our lives. When those battles hit us, we need to have a plan. We need to know what our plan of action is so that we're not just standing there getting beaten up by the storm and putting unrealistic, misguided expectations on Jesus. So when I think of strategy, and I haven't played sports much, but the first thing that came to my mind was the little whiteboards that I see when I would go to basketball games. And the coach was, okay, this is what we do. And I see all these little X's and O's. That means absolutely nothing to me. Don't know. I'm sure it works for somebody, for all my sports folks. That wasn't me. I don't know. So then I also thought about the movies that I saw, the war movies, where you would see all of the military leaders and they're around the table and they have these maps and they're laying out, this is how we're going to go and this is where we're going to overtake the enemy. Again, wasn't a military person, seemed very sophisticated and complicated to me. So the beauty of having a strategy for life is that it doesn't have to be complicated.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't have to be complicated at all.
Mhm.
Anyone ever play checkers?
Yes.
Okay, just about everybody. All right, so the object of the game is to capture all of your opponent's checkers.
Yeah.
The basic movement is diagonal forward, just forward, right? And the object of the game is to get to the other side.
Mhm.
Because when you get to the other side, what do you say?
King me.
King me.
Come on.
That's right.
Yeah.
So you get to the other side, you say king me. Once you've been kinged, things change.
Yeah.
Before, you used to just move forward, diagonally forward. But now when you're the king, when you've been king, what can you do?
Whatever.
You can do whatever you want. You can move backwards, you can move forward. Yeah, you're a little more free once you've been king.
That's good. That's good.
So how does that's cool for checkers, but how does that apply to our lives?
All right.
So the first thing we have to do is recognize that we have an opponent.
Uh-huh.
When you sit down to play checkers, you know who your opponent is.
Mhm.
They're sitting right across from you on the other side of the board. But how many of you know in life we have an opponent?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
We have a person called the devil,
Uh-huh.
Satan, whatever you want to call him. But his major goal is to make sure that we don't get king.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
His number one goal is to make sure that we quit, to make sure we don't win. But the good news is his strategy never works.
Yeah.
Never ever works. When we sit down at a checkerboard, we have a 50-50 chance of winning. But when we are in life, when we choose the right strategy,
Yeah.
and we recognize that we have an opponent, then we always win.
Yeah. Yeah.
The enemy comes, his weapons are formed, but they never prosper.
Yeah.
So we can't go through life thinking everything is going to be easy.
Uh-huh.
It's not going to be easy. You don't sit down and play checkers and think that you're just going to all the way across the board without any opposition, right?
Come on.
So in life, we have to expect that things are going to happen. And sometimes things happen in a cycle. And they happen again, and again, and again. But again, we have to recognize that we have opposition. But that opposition strategy never works. Then we have to think before we move.
Uh-huh.
Because every move matters.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
When you're playing checkers, you don't want to be out on the board, have one checker out all by itself, because what's going to happen? It's going to get jumped.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I know none of you all never fought or anything because you were good students. But I know when I was in school, I saw quite a few people that ran their mouth and talked all kind of smack. And because they talked smack to everybody, when they were out there by themselves, everybody came for them and they got jumped. I'm just saying. I know you didn't do any of that in your school. It wasn't there. But in my school, that's how it went down. You talk smack, you can't cash that check, jumped. So it's the same way when we're thinking about the strategy of our lives. We can't be out there on an island by ourselves. We can't, and I'm speaking for myself. When something is wrong, I tend to isolate because I don't want to bother anyone with my trouble or my struggle. I usually am the one that's encouraging everybody, so I feel like if I show up and I'm not encouraging, then they're not going to know what to do with that. And I just don't want to deal with the whole thing, so I pull off by myself. But I am grateful that I have friends that recognize when I'm missing. When they don't see me, they know something's wrong and they come and get me. And I'm grateful for that. But that's how how we were created,
Yes, yes.
to be in relationship with one another. Because even God is in relationship with himself.
Yes, yes.
Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Yes, yes.
All right. We were created for a relationship. So we should never, when something's going wrong, isolating is the worst thing that we could possibly do.
Amen.
And even if it's not when something's wrong, even when you think everything is right, we all need that person in our lives when they try to flip it at the end of the week to be like, remember what we just did?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We all need that people to be like, back over here. And when we have those people, they can help guide us.
Mm-hmm.
But most importantly, even if we don't have those people, we have Jesus.
Yeah.
And who better to ask what move you need to make than him?
Amen.
He's the one that created you, so he knows your flaws, he knows your strengths. He wrote the plan for your life, so he knows what moves need to happen to get you where he wants you to be. So it's good, you have to have the people in your corner, but you also have to know that you can go to Jesus and be like, I don't know what to do, what move? Because every move matters.
Yes.
So you recognize that you have an opponent, but that his weapons don't work.
Yes.
You think before you make a move. And ideally ask Jesus, what move should I make?
Uh-huh.
But then you have to remember that you already have a king.
Ah, yeah. Yeah.
In checkers, you might have to work for it and dodge some things to get to it. But as a Christian, you already have a king.
Yes, yes.
And your king has already outmaneuvered the enemy.
Yes.
Your king has already beaten the opponent. So there is no reason that you should ever feel like a loser.
Uh-huh.
Because you have a king.
Yes, yes.
There is no reason that you should ever feel dismayed or get down and stay down, because you already have a king. And the beauty of knowing that our king has already outmaneuvered the opponent. Throw something up, I can back up now because I'm king.
Yeah.
I don't have to walk right into it. I don't have to just move forward. I have a king. So the first time anything comes up and I'm feeling like I'm a little, Jesus, I don't know, I might be getting a little anxious here. This might not work out. I'm starting to feel like this might not work out. Jesus, king me.
Yeah.
King me, Jesus. Oh no, look, the ambulance has come by my house. My family members in the house. Jesus, king me.
Yeah.
I need you to king me. My bank statement came in today, Jesus. Oh, it's looking kind of rough. Got babies in college. Well, we're going to king me, Jesus. The job is looking crazy. I want a new job. I asked you for a new job. You didn't give me the new job, Lord. But you know what? Not going. King me, Jesus. My marriage. Everybody thinks it looks good on the outside. Not you, baby. Not that. It's not feeling right. I don't love them like I used to love them. We're not one like we used to be one. Jesus, king me. Jesus, king me. I had a plan. The plan didn't work out. How come over and over again, Jesus, I plan these things and they don't? Jesus, king me. And even more, where the Israelites missed it, they took their garments and they threw them down before the Lord. Come on in, Jesus.
Yeah.
Come on in, Jesus. But then they picked them back up. See, that's where they messed up.
Yeah.
Because this is when we're sacrificing. We're lenient. Lord, we honor you as our king. We listen to you as our king. We obey you as our king. But wait a minute. That ain't look right. You got to be king. You can't be my king because now you got on a crown of thorns and that don't look right, Jesus. We have to lay it out. Whatever it was we had on our shoulders, we got to lay it out and not pick it up. And instead of putting all of our attention on what we have laid out, we need to, not superficially, but from deep down in our sanctified soul. Raise our hands and praise. We ain't even looking at that, Jesus. Lord, I thank you. You are my King of glory. My Lord God, strong and mighty. Mighty in battle. Lord, fight this how you want to fight it. I'm not even looking at it. I'm going to turn my back on it, Jesus. King me, Jesus. King me, Jesus. I'm not even going to try to work it out. I'm going to walk away from it. I'm not even going to try to make it do what I want it to do. Because I believe in you. King me, Jesus. King me. King me, Jesus. And I will surrender to you.
My God, my God.
Not a fake, superficial surrender. I'm going to give it all to you. I'm going to leave it. Because the only business I need to worry about is praising you. Because as I ask you and invite you to king me, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to figure it out. I don't have to try to know what's going on. All I have to do is praise you. And if I'm spending all my time and all my energy praising you, you're going to let me know what move to make. I will know that there's an opponent, but I ain't got to worry about the opponent because you're going to fight the battle. When I remember that all I have to do is say, Jesus, king me, nothing can move me. I'm not putting any unrealistic expectations on Jesus. I'm not setting myself up to be mad and upset when things don't go my way, because the only thing that I am focused on is saying, Jesus, king me. King me. Just king me. King me. Because when you king me, you will tell me what way to move. Whether I go forward or go backward. Because people always tell you don't go backward. But sometimes if Jesus says go backward, you better go backward. Because maybe he's taking you back to where you messed up. And he's trying to fix that thing so you can go forward. King me, Jesus. King me, Jesus. So when we say king, we're surrendering our will to him. We're trading our earthly, limited perspective for his eternal perspective. We're not going to be worried about what's going on right now because he is going to have us focused on what is going to last and what is going to make a difference in this world. When we say king me, we're trusting that what he allows is so much better than what we have planned. When we say king me, and this is specifically for the part of the family that's here, when you say king me, you're empowered to live out your theme for this Lenten season. You're empowered to love. Listen, observe, and vitally encourage. When you're king, you can do that, and it's easy. So today and every day hereafter, don't allow your frustrations to set your expectations of what God is going to do in your life. Lay down your burdens and don't pick them up. Trust God to do what he came to do. You don't have to understand it. Don't even try to understand it. Trust him and put all your energy into praising him. A true praise. And if you have nothing else to say, if you don't even know what to say, just cry out, King. So family, I don't want to take for granted that all of us here have a relationship with Jesus. It's such a vital relationship. It's something that can sometimes seem like it's a lot of work and it's so hard, but it's so easy. Because all we have to do is invite him and just, Lord, here I am. And when we surrender to him and say that we believe, he takes it from there. So if there's anyone here today that has not accepted Jesus as your Savior, you have not started your relationship with him, or maybe you had a relationship and kind of got distracted a little bit, but you want to come on home, I invite you now to come up to this altar. Jesus is already here. He already knows. And there's no better day than today. Don't wait for tomorrow. No better day than today to just say, here I am, Lord. Here I am. The altar is open.
As we're standing all over the church, all that are raising.